Hello and welcome back. So today I'm going to be talking about my comfort plane. What is a comfort plane, you may ask? Well, just like comfort food, if you're having a night where you're feeling a little bit lazy, you don't know what to cook, but you're a little bit hungry and you just end up throwing a pizza into the oven because it's easy, familiar, it tastes good, and it's pretty quick. Now, the comfort plane is a little bit similar to that. The comfort plane is the one that you kind of fall back to whenever you don't know what to fly, whenever you're struggling in the game a little bit, and you just need, you come in from work, you're a little bit stressed out, and you just need to fly something that you know what you're doing, you're quite good at, and you just end up having good matches. For me, if you haven't guessed already, this plane is the Taiwanese F-16 AMU. I'll talk a little bit about the plane in a second, but for now, you see I just merged with an F-15. Now, we go for the second merge here. I do opt to take on one circle again. Yes, I know, fighter pilot terms, cringe, but whatever, deal with it. The thing with the F-15 is this guy just took off, so he's probably still quite heavy on fuel. Now, if you've watched my F-15 video, you'll know that the F-15 is very, very sensitive to its fuel load. Ideally, you really don't want to be fighting in that thing above 20 minutes of fuel. Now, the F-15 will beat the F-16 in a slow speed fight kind of thing, but with the current fuel loads the way they are, I'm also on 11 minutes here in the F-16, which is a pretty damn light plane, might I say. So it's pretty easy to bleed this guy of energy, and as you can see, he's very slow, ends up in front of me, and it's no problem gunning him down. Now, stuff like that is pretty easy to do if you're in a neutral merge and you both start in a similar position. But what happens when someone just pulls into your 6? Kind of like this guy right here. I see he pulls in behind me, he's right next to me, I immediately stamp on the air brake, I cut the afterburner, I even reduce the throttle a little bit, just to get him out in front. Once I'm satisfied that he's out in front enough, I ping the throttle back forwards, just so I don't lose too much speed, put it back into dampening mode, just to stabilize the F-16 a little bit, make it a little bit easier to recover the energy. He obviously panics, goes into a vertical, which wasn't the right decision because I still had enough energy to follow him up there. Even if the F-16 can stack like crazy, if I have enough energy to follow him up there, I am going to follow him up there, and he's going to be a very slow target. As you can see, wasn't difficult at all. Now, I was getting some more RWR pings from some F-16, sorry, taking off from the airfield, but seeing as I'm on like 6 minutes of fuel, I decide to book it. By the way, if you are looking for a War Thunder sim-related Discord server to find some people to play with, then you're more than welcome to join my one. Link is in the description. We'd love to have you. Now, what can I say about the MLU? So first of all, MLU stands for Midlife Upgrade, and if you've been paying attention, this is the F-16A MLU. It sits in the Chinese tech tree, as this is a Taiwanese plane technically, and what happened in real life is basically the Dutch Air Force, the Belgian Air Force, the Taiwanese Air Force, they all had these aging F-16As, and the Americans came around and said like, hey, instead of replacing these, we'll just upgrade them. So what they did is they upgraded the airframe, they gave it a new radar, some new avionics, AMRAAM capability and stuff like that, right? What this means for War Thunder is that the MLU is basically an F-16 Block 15, so the F-16 ADF out of the American and the Italian tech trees. That's the flight model you have, but you get 30 more flares, so you get, or countermeasures, sorry, so you get 90 countermeasures in total, and you also get a TWS mode. You do not get helmet mounted sight, unfortunately, neither do you get AIM-9M capability. You are stuck with the AIM-9Ls and the AIM-7M Sparrow, I believe. I can't remember if it's the M or the F. Now, overall, this thing does get a pretty decent weapon package overall. I mean, they're still AIM-9Ls, they're not, AIM-9Ps or anything like that. So you can definitely make this thing work, and it's not a huge handicap or anything like that, but obviously if you're going up against people with AIM-9Ms. Now, if it only gets 90 flares and it doesn't get AIM-9Ms, why am I making a video on this saying that this is my comfort plane and not the F-16C? Well, I'll tell you, and the simple reason is that you can play this on the red side. So this is obviously, like I said, you can find this in the Chinese tech tree, which if you play sim, you should know that China always gets put up against the Americans in every single match, at least the top tier. I know there's one matchmaker where it's just like Allies versus Axis, like World War II style, and obviously China's going to get put on the American team then. But you hardly ever see that at this kind of battle rating, unless it's one of those, like dodgy Asian servers, but we don't talk about them. The thing is, if you remember back a couple months ago, back before the Gripen got added and the Su-27 and stuff like that, we were in the F-16C meta. The F-16C was the best plane in the game. It is still a very, very, very good plane in the game. I would argue the Gripen's the best now, but we'll see how long that lasts. The thing is, American teams would just start to absolutely dominate the Russian teams, and this would last for like 4 or 5 months as well, and basically until we got stuff like the Gripen. Because the Russian teams only had the MiG-29 to deal with the F-16s at that point, And the MiG-29, while it's a pretty decent, it has a pretty decent flight model. I'm talking about the earlier MiG-29, by the way, but it does fall kind of short to something like an F-16. Now, couple that with the lack of like decent avionics that it gets, with the RWR for one thing, the radar is just, I mean, it's not a bad radar, but it is just subpar to something like the F-16 radar. The missiles, you only get R-60s, and okay, you get the R-27 ERs, but they're radar missiles, and radar missiles can be very easily defeated in this game, just, you know, multi-pathing and stuff like that, despite what American mains may tell you. And of course, the low flare count, and by low, I mean 60. The thing with 60 flares and the combination of an RWR that doesn't actually tell you what's locking you up, just, or even how far away it is or anything like that, results in following situation. You are getting pinged by something, you see a dot over there that is approaching you. Now, you don't know what that is, meaning that it could be an F-16C with AIM-9Ms, it could also be a Tornado with Skyflash Super Temps, right? You just don't know at this point. The problem is, though, you can't take the chance that it's going to be the Tornado, because the second you do, it's going to end up being an F-16C, and if you don't start dumping out flares in front of those AIM-9Ms, they are going to hit you, just because of the way the seeker head works. Now, you do that with every single dot, with every single plane that vaguely makes its way into your kind of like sphere of influence, right? You're going to run out of those 60 countermeasures really fast. And this is a problem that the Russian team had back then, is that the people would just get shot down constantly because they would either run out of flares, or they weren't pre-flaring, or they just didn't have the situational awareness that the other team did have because of, you know, lack of RWR, and the radar just wouldn't update fast enough and stuff like that, right? So what would happen is those people would leave. Now, this would, if you are on the Russian team, I'm sure you're no stranger to being outnumbered. In most cases 2 to 1, sometimes even 3 to 1, sometimes even more, honestly, and that is was a big problem. So now not only were you in the subpar aircraft, but you were outgunned and you were also outmanned. Now, I know someone's going to mention it in the comments, this is why I'm just saying this, like I know the MiG-29 SMT also exists, which gets the updated RWR, it gets an updated radar, it also gets the new sort of IRCCM Fox 2 missiles. I think it also got R-27 ETs as well, which is all very, very good. However, the F-16C also gets all of this stuff, right? But the F-16C didn't really take a hit to its flight performance, at least not a really significant one, right? Whereas the MiG-29 SMT, oh boy, did that thing take a hit to its flight performance compared to its predecessor. Meaning that with your RWR and everything like that, you can now get to the merge no problem, right? You can survive the pre-merge AIM-9Ms with your flares and your RWR and stuff like that, right? But once you get to the merge, you are now just, you're a sitting duck. Yes, I know the R-73 is a good missile, but if the guy just dumps out flares all the time, there's not going to be much that you can really do at that point if he vaguely knows what he's doing. And that's the issue. So the SMT did not balance this. You know, why did the Americans get all of this fancy stuff and there's basically virtually no downside, but when the Russians get all of this stuff, they take a huge hit to their flight performance? It wasn't the plane that was going to help Russian teams to sort of claw back the meta, right? You know what I mean? And the thing is, not only did you have to deal with that as a Russian player, right, but you also had to deal with, God forbid, you go on Reddit one day and you just see some smackheads post about like, oh yeah, but like it's supposed to be like this because the F-16 in real life is so much better. Shit. Because in real life, the F-16C is better in every single way than the MiG-29. Oh lord, and that's why it's good that it's in the game. Well, you know, and then you check their stat card or something and you just realize that they've never ever played a red side plane in their life, and they only ever play the F-16C. And you know, it reminds me of these people that, like, when it comes to prop tier, they always go on about like historical matchmaking, specifically like, you know, something like the ME-262 is supposed to fight P-51s because, like, well, you know, realism, and it's apparently happened in real life and whatever. But then, like, when there's like some sort of event that kind of mirrors this stuff, they, when asked what plane do they want to fly, well, obviously the 262. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you know what I'm trying to say, right? You know, and after like you're playing these types of matches and then going on Reddit or even just reading this stuff like in the in-game chat, I got so fed up with it, and I almost went, do you know what, man, just fuck it, fuck this, and I almost quit the game, I'm gonna be honest. But that is when I remembered, hey, hang on, I have an F-16 that I can play on the red side. Now, yeah, I know I could have just played something like Japan, where, you know, what did they get? Was it the AJ that they get, or the Italian one, which is the ADF? And both of those are still better than anything the Russians have, even to this day, I think, still, in my opinion, because even though they only get 60 flares, but they get that super good flight performance, especially the AJ, because it gets the Block 10 flight performance. But they get the good RWR, which means you have like such an increase in situational awareness. And the MOU basically has the ADF flight model, but you get more flares, which is really what you need. I know it gets the TWS mode, which is very, very, very helpful, don't get me wrong, especially for like low flying opponents and stuff like that, where you just want to you just need like a little bit of extra help, like sort of seeing them against the terrain on certain maps, especially like Spain, for instance, here, like you're seeing in the footage. It can be kind of hard sometimes to pick enemy aircraft up, you know, visually if they're flying very low to the ground, so the TWS does help a little bit with that. The point I'm trying to make is it gets all of this stuff without losing any of its flight performance, so you can kind of play the same game as the F-16Cs, but once you get to the merge, you actually stand a really, really good chance. You can go toe-to-toe with them. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think the Block 15 flight model was still probably a little bit better than the what is it, the Block 50 one that the F-16C has. So you actually stand a really, really good chance within a merge if you manage to get to the merge, which you can do because you get all of the fancy toys in this thing. And like I said, to this day, this is still the only plane that it can only play on red side that gets all of this stuff in one package. The flanker, I'm still not too sure about the flanker, but the thing is, it doesn't get the RWR, so that's out of the window. The flight performance is kind of weird. It gets a bunch of missiles, which kind of makes up for it, and the flare count isn't too bad, but like, you know, it doesn't have the full package. This thing has the full package. Okay, so I've just gone through the recording up until now, and I've just realised I haven't once mentioned why you would actually want to play on the red team in Sim in general over the blue side. Well, it's actually quite simple. As I'm sure you've noticed, if you've tried to queue up for matches on the American team, or find service for the American team, it can sometimes be quite hard to actually find decent games as an American team, because just most people play America at this kind of battle rating, and this used to be a much bigger problem back in the F-16C meta. It's not too bad right now, but sometimes in certain times of days it could be a little bit tricky. The thing is, if you play on the red team, you're generally always guaranteed a match, right? You're always guaranteed an enemy-rich environment. You can get a bunch of kills. You don't just get 3 kills and then you run out of enemies to fight because everyone's left the match. And obviously, for someone like me who likes to go on like high kill games and stuff like that, because, you know, I do YouTube content and whatever, it can be quite beneficial to often play on the red team, which is why, you know, like for instance my F-15J video, which can play on the blue side as well, which is arguably a much easier fight. Fighting Russian teams in this game is a lot easier than fighting the American teams, but you also run out of enemies a lot sooner, and it's just easier to get high kill games if you're on the red side, yeah, for me, at least in my opinion. But with that, we've come to the final clip of the video. Now, this is quite a good clip, I think. It was quite a nice little fight. I did enjoy it. It starts off with a little bit of BVR. I lock this guy up here at fire off a Sparrow at about 10 miles. Obviously I climb a little bit just to give the Sparrow a little bit more of an angle coming down. However, I do lose the lock pretty much immediately, and as I have an incoming missile approach warning, I start getting into the notch and getting down into the weeds a little bit, right? I've turned my nose over there. I used the TWS. You can see quite a lot of people. There was one coming towards me from the left as well. The TWS is really good at sort of helping you prioritize what targets to go for, who's closest, who's pointing at you, who's flying away from you, and also the different speeds and stuff. This Mirage here is just flaring away, and obviously the AIM-9Ls do not have IRCCM, but it's not a problem because I have Sparrows, which are a radar-guided missile, so you can just lock them up pretty easily, and they're obviously not going to be affected by the flares. Now, I'm getting locked up by an F-15. I decide to fly away. I get a little bit of distance just because over there is where they will spawn. That's where their airfields are at. I don't want to get too close to there. So the reason I'm turning away is just to buy me a little bit more time for my team to arrive, just for me to get my bearings a little bit more. I see that guy who killed one of our friendlies, so I just fire off an AIM-9L. A pretty easy kill there. He had no idea I was coming. Obviously the LWR telling me that I still have people coming from this area here, and it's an F-15. He is launched. I'm not sure if he's launched at me or if the RWR is just kind of like, you know, going crazy as it does sometimes. TWS tells me there's more than one of them though, so I'm trying to stick close to the ground here, not fly directly towards him, just to give the missile more of a chance to actually miss due to the multipathing and stuff like that. Now, he flies over me. There, 2 flew over me. This was the guy behind. That was an F-16, so I tried to get the nose round as quick as possible. I spool up a missile. and I think he actually ends up turning around here. I decide to fire off the missile. I'm just hoping he doesn't see it or whatever like that, but he actually manages to outpull it for some reason. The AIM-9M just doesn't, like, it just, I don't know what happened there, but the missile missed, so fair enough. We have to maneuver back around into a better position. Now I want you to pay attention to what this guy's doing, because it's actually quite smart, I think. He basically led us through the entire battlefield. He then turned around. My missile missed him, obviously, which he got a little bit lucky, but he could have also just fled it off, right? It was an AIM-9M. Then he goes behind this mountain here, maintaining his speed, so he's keeping me outside of range. And then he disappears behind a mountain and I pick up his friend. Now, this was an F-15 that I saw. I was within missile parameters. Obviously, he blows up the second I fired a missile. A little bit slow reaction time, but then I see that SMT gets taken out. And then I realise, okay, so there's probably someone here, but I don't see him, so I start pre-flaring. Now you can see on the RWR that there is an F-16 behind me. Now I'm panicking a little bit, because I don't actually see him. I'm just going off what the RWR is telling me. And this is also why RWR is so bloody important to have an RWR that actually tells you what's behind you and doesn't just, you know, beep at any kind of like little AA unit or whatever that's going at you. So I don't see him, so I decide to go down this mountain a little bit. I'm not 100% sure if he is actually following me, but ends up, you know, being true. He is following me. At this point, I'm kind of like, okay. I tried to get him to overshoot. I put out the air brake a little bit. Tried dumping my speed. I'm expecting him to sort of fly past me here, but nope. He didn't fall for it, and now he's in my control zone, and I have no speed. So I'm kind of panicking a little bit here, trying to flop the plane around just to make it a hard shot for him. But to no avail, and he ends up gunning me down. I think I got about 3 kills in that little furball, but at the end of the day, he can't win them all, and so ends my little reign of terror. But yeah, final score was 25-4. It was a fairly long game, so I did edit it quite a lot out. I don't think I would have been able to get a KD like that in something like a MiG-29 or an Su-27. You can see Flax at the top of the board there with 26-14. He was flying the flanker. Now that is a lot of kills, but obviously 14 deaths is, you know, and Flax is someone who usually actually has better KDs than me in the games that we play. So yeah, even he can't tame the flanker, and it is mostly down to the RWR just not telling you what the hell is even going on. So yeah, I think as far as it goes, the F-16 AMU is probably still the best plane that Red Side exclusively has. Yes, I know the flanker is awesome. I know it's fun. The MiG-29 is a cool plane as well, but just realistically speaking, gameplay-wise in War Thunder, I'm sorry, but I think the F-16 just still tops it, right, at the end of the day, even if it is an older model that's been modernized. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Like I said at the beginning of the video, Discord is in the description if you're interested. Other than that, I thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Cheers.